Hello, I am Joanna Gordon. I am the organizer of Transform AI, a bespoke annual conference focused on the business implications of AI. And I'm very excited to be here today, partnering with France Digital as well as our founding partner, Accenture, to host a session on Has COVID been good or bad for AI? So exactly a year ago, Accenture came out with a report pointing out that AI technology was really poised to become a significant source of value for a wide range of businesses. And at the time, 84% of the C-level executives that were interviewed for this survey believed that they wouldn't be able to achieve their business strategy without scaling AI. At the same time, a year ago, 16% of these executives had only hadn't made the shift yet from, experimentation in AI to truly scaling it and having a robust AI capabilities. So since then, a year, not even a few months later, we've been hit by COVID. Every aspect of business, society, the economy have been upended. So what I'm really hoping that we can do today is try and understand what this pandemic has taught us about where AI can add value across businesses, and also really try to understand how corporations have started to rethink their AI strategies and deployment. So to help us answer this question, I'm actually extremely excited to have four amazing, incredible speakers. First of all, Yves Bernaert, who is the Accenture Technology Europe CEO, followed by Christophe, who is the Group Innovation Director of Novares, Kathryn, Hume, Senior Director of Product and Business Development at Borealis, and finally, Mike Potter, the CTO of Thames Water. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
So before we get into some of the conversations, I sort of want to get a sense from all of you really quickly on this panel. Do you think this pandemic has helped demonstrate the value of AI for business moving forward? Or do you think instead that it has further highlighted some of the challenges in deploying AI responsibly and safely at scale? So maybe, just would love to sort of do a quick counter top if you're more optimistic or pessimistic about how this has impacted AI.
Who starts?
You go ahead. All yours.
Okay. So I will start. So thanks a lot, Joanna. Very happy to be in this panel. Indeed, I think it has changed quite a lot in the sense that all technology accelerated during COVID. I mean, the acceleration of digital transformation of company, instead of now thinking, they will take decade, a lot of them have been accelerating. And specifically like the basic, with all the e-commerce platform at the large corporation in the globe. So when you talk to CDO, CIO, they all include as well AI being part of the acceleration. So they have looked at AI more, how can it help me to solve my challenge that I'm facing today to reach my customer? And find better way to reach them with the right product they need at the right time. What specifically, and then just to illustrate, to maybe state the basics as an outcome that we have seen, there's been some immediate solutions that a lot of companies have implemented, which were there already for some, but which is all about conversational AI. And that it has launched a lot of time ago, but now when people needed, to understand better the product, company didn't have the practice of the people to answer all questions. So they all rapidly implemented online tools to chat and get answers of customer questions. And so not only we saw that people shift to think about AI, how it can help me, but they implemented pretty quickly. And a lot of our clients ask us to help there, implement very, very quickly some chat of what we call conversational AI, which is all about automating the contact to be able to increase. And we have seen the volume of those type of contact multiply by 15.
So if I had to just do a quick, has it been positive or negative? Your overall reaction right now is it's been actually it's really helped push it forward.
Yes, it has helped to solve the challenges. Yes, absolutely.
Mike, what's your more on the positive? Has it been good or bad? Just to sort of get a sense, and then we'll go deeper into the questions.
It's been hugely positive.
Okay, and Kathryn?
I think it's also been positive too. What we've seen in the financial services sector, so Borealis is part of a large bank in Canada, the Royal Bank of Canada, is it's been a little bit of a testing ground for the flexibility and adaptability of machine learning systems. So as the markets go haywire and don't necessarily behave like they have in the past, we've seen, and I'm happy to talk more about this further, that some reinforcement learning systems that are able to adapt in real time can handle that. Right, and keep their performance as opposed to falling back and on the kinds of rules-based systems that have existed historically.
Definitely have questions about this as we go down, and then Christophe, sort of again, just really quickly, are you more?
Yeah, very quickly, very positive, because it gives to everyone a sense of acceleration. We need to accelerate to be able to reach the right challenges.
Perfect. So maybe just to, as a next question, I'm going to start with you, Mike. And for everybody listening, I don't even know if everybody realizes that, you're really, Thames Water is responsible for basically delivering clean water to, I think, what is it, a quarter of the UK population. So
Yeah.
not an easy feat here. So March 2020 arrives. Business as usual comes to a full stop. Walk me through this. What happened, and how did your AI application? What's changed in the way you were applying AI in that?
Yeah, thank you. An awful lot is the answer. I think it's fair to summarize that we're an industry that's essential, but also assets that are on average 80 years old. And over the last 10, 20, 30 years, we've been able to readily predict our customer behavior, usage and consumption of water, waste and generation of waste. All that changed. So the real change for me wasn't the adoption of technology. Customer behavior changed radically. Some ways that you could predict, so some ways we couldn't. The consumption of water, for example. One thing I do know is that a crisis is often the primary driver of transformation. So crisis, and we have a phrase: "Never waste an opportunity, never waste a crisis." And so we didn't. We had some things we had to respond to: customers going into debt, changing water usage patterns. So what do we do around that? If I think around, firstly, we cut through all the governance. We increased, our risk appetite went up. Really sought to accelerate change. Key for us was the demand for water across, 25% of the UK population. The patterns fundamentally changed the way that we'd never seen before. Couldn't have predicted. And we had to respond to that. So in 6 weeks, we built a completely new data model for predicting supply and demand. This makes sure that we don't have any service interruptions, loss of supply. People obviously die without. And in that, we were able to predict it, build it within 6 weeks of time, cutting through all of the crisis, all of the fear, uncertainty, and concern, build that model. And then what we've been able to do is, firstly, it did predict customers, enable us to stand our assets up and produce water as was needed. So we've had zero supply interruptions in that time. Secondly, what we've been able to do is reuse those machine learning models to actually continuously improve our predictability. So we've not only responded, we continue to optimize running our assets in the most efficient way, as well as meeting customer need. It's fundamentally cut through any fear people had about this because we had no choice. We've been able to do it. And I think the real power that's come out of that wasn't that we did it. We're telling internally about the work that we did, the way we're using these technologies now. And that's given people confidence. It's also created capability that we didn't have previously. So we're now building on the same models to actually start to predict, what's happening in our waste network. And now we're looking by the spring next year to be able to replicate that in our waste network, so we can actually go out and proactively clear blockages before they become instant. So we've got the confidence not just to do it, but also to reuse it and apply it to new problems.
So last year, in 2019, you had announced a digital transformation initiative, a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
With COVID, are you still on where are you on that 5-year plan? Are you closer to where you thought you would be 5 years from now suddenly?
We did the first 18 months of that plan in 3 months. New contact platform in the sky that meant our agents could work at home, which they couldn't do previously. We insane scale around our data capabilities very quickly. We had 3 teams working in an agile model this time last year. Today we have 32 teams working, product teams building new products. Around a third of those are building data products, all reusing machine learning and artificial intelligence capabilities. Now we're looking to apply them as we have done. We plan to do in years 2, 3, 4, or 5 of that plan. We're planning like how can we understand complaints and the reasons why customers complain? How can we predict the likelihood of impact of changes customer behavior, sewage network as I've described. But also we're looking to do, we've got a lot of customers going into debt. Now we can't cut the water supply off. We want to help customers before they get into debt. So now starting to build models that allows the model of propensity for customers to go into debt, to understand why that's happening, to understand what interventions we could use, but also understand the positive impact of those interventions so we can tune them, so we can prevent people getting into this difficult circumstance. That confidence, that was always in our intention. What COVID has done is accelerated that transformation, time down, but also given us the confidence as an organization to use artificial intelligence as a core capability to help with those things.
Fantastic. Thanks. So I'm going to sort of actually, Kathryn, maybe let you sort of ask your question sort of based on this. So Kathryn, you're at Royal Bank of Borealis, which is part of the Royal Bank of Canada's AI Research Institute. And as I was, it has 2 aspects to what you do at Borealis. There's the pure research side, where you're, actively contributing to pushing science forward, and also the side where you're really looking at how do you apply sort of what you're learning, not only to the financial services sector, but actually beyond. So maybe from a pure research standpoint, I'm guessing COVID-19 was this amazing opportunity to sort of test some of the boundaries of AI. I mean, suddenly, algorithms that, models that have been built with like data that suddenly didn't even make sense anymore. As Mike was saying, Hume, our consumption of water patterns, for instance, changed drastically. Financial services, as you said, it was earlier extremely volatile and consumer behavior changing constantly. What were some of the interesting insights and learnings for that you saw through this COVID crisis?
Sure, I'll mention 2. So one is banks have had data-oriented models in place for a really long time. So and when we think about AI, it's become a little bit of a catch-all term that can often refer to any and all models, but there's some models that outperform others. So what we found is we had actually 4 years ago first started building a product that applied a type of machine learning algorithm to the financial markets, a type called reinforcement learning, which isn't quite trained on historical data like many others are. It's trained instead on feedback from live interaction with an environment. And what we found, I guess we could say COVID has been a little bit of a testing ground for whether or not this algorithm is indeed superior to some of the other variations in the market. And we found that what's been amazing is that, when March hit and then the markets really changed between March and May. And the changes were that there was an increasing spread between the bid and the sell price in the market. So, Facebook was normally a penny over what it ended up actually selling for. It would increase sometimes up to $5. That's not specific for Facebook. I'm just sort of giving an example. So our algorithm in real time learned that the market was behaving differently than it normally did and adapted its actions to execute trades in a way that continued to provide returns to our clients. And I think what we took from that was if there were any doubts and skepticism on whether or not this could be a potentially more profitable and sustained approach, they were resolved during COVID. The second thing I think that's really exciting right now, and here we are doing a conference and we're all online, and this is not just unique to this conference, but basically a lot of work has been transferred to a remote setting. So we have this really massive new data source that's being created in the form of video. And video is a great staging ground for a lot of the newer research in artificial intelligence, be that estimating and guessing our emotions on our face, our poses, right? Our posture, if we're communicating aggressiveness or passiveness when we're speaking. And so often, the discourse around artificial intelligence for the past however many years has been around fear of the workplace, automating away people's jobs. But what I think is happening in the pandemic is now we have so many recordings of people speaking via video, we can open up opportunities to use algorithms to make us better at being humans, make us communicate, help us communicate more effectively by quantifying things like how fast we speak and if we have vocal fry, right? So all of these seemingly intractable and soft skills, I think, are amenable to algorithmic representation, and that is a wonderful seeding ground for a lot of the latest in computer vision and video research.
Fascinating. It's actually, Christophe, I want to turn to you. So you are with Novares, which is a global plastic solutions provider, and you guys operate in 21 countries. I think you have 42 manufacturing plants around the world. And here we're all talking about, AI in terms of sort of machine learning and things like that. I'm just curious on your side, and if I take AI in the very broad sense of it, did you suddenly have to change your when you're in your manufacturing centers? Like, did robotics suddenly take an uptake, that unexpected uptake? Did you see a change in certain in how things were, how you're using automation and robotics throughout your manufacturing process?
Yes, it changed everything, because actually in the previous world 1 year ago, everybody was, I would say, used to travel in plants, to travel to see clients. So we spent most of our times in flights, in airports, and dealing with all that kind of things. Now with the pandemic, we are obliged to move to the digital world. So we need to find solutions which are not obliging us, I would say, to move physically, and it creates huge opportunity to implement a lot of new solutions in plants, in how to design solutions, how to create new products, because we had for the past 20 years progressed a lot in terms of high performance computing, how to put things into formulas. But now we are creating a lot of data, and we can use it. We are not spending our time traveling or trying to interact in very few occasions. We are using our time, I would say, to create new things using all this data. So this is what it creates, and it was only possible because we are stuck in our places. So we need to find new ways to create, not by moving around like.
Right. And did your operations, were your systems able to adapt quickly to this sudden change?
Yes, because actually all existed. We had cameras, we have softwares, we had all solutions, but you need a trigger to put them in place, and I would say to bring it to a new step, and that was possible due to these constraints.
So it's almost a question to both you and Mike then. So Mike, with you guys already having launched your digital transformation, certain basic elements were in there. You already had sort of, as you just said, the cameras in the factories and things like that. You had all the elements you felt to be able to then it was sort of like it catalyzed, it made it faster, but you had the core elements in place to at least get going really quickly when the pandemic hit. So maybe I'm really curious, and I'm going to turn to you, Yves. Was it about 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I don't even remember when Accenture really came out with this notion of the human and machine, and how, and that you both need to work hand in hand. How do you see this post-COVID? And well, and when you look at what happened with COVID, how important was it to have humans still be able to interfere when it came to AI? I mean, I think all of we all heard of all the crazy Amazon stories. Suddenly not even with past data algorithms not knowing going haywire, and you needed human intervention. So could you sort of share with me your vision about where the human role in the future of AI?
Well, I mean, we always say, yeah, it's all about human plus machine. And some years ago, 2018 maybe, that's the time we said it. And it's trying to transform, take the best of AI, meaning we can do things very much differently, But at the same time, we need to acknowledge that we need to transform the people, we need to train them to be able to do new tasks and leverage anything that can be automated to complement them. So we did strongly believe that we have to think about those new systems, not in opposition, to say, how do I replace people to do something more automated and more efficiently, but how do I augment people to bring them new features leveraging AI? Because there are things that can be automated or things that even human, based on what we heard from what Mike said, for example, that human could not even do without it. So it's really important that when we design new system, that we think how they can complement themselves, right?
So maybe any one of you, I'll let you sort of react. We always talk about sort of humans sort of sometimes being the biggest barrier to change. So how did you all get how are you getting all your insights on how you got everybody to change so quickly? Like, what was this unexpected? And what would and how do you see the future? And we always talk about the future of work and the implications of AI. Are you, as some were very pessimistic about what this would imply for their workforce? Are you more optimistic now because you saw how quickly people were able to adapt?
I think, we've had really interesting responses, but we built our work on 3 principles. The first is co-creation. So staff or our users are in the room helping us to build this. It takes some of the fear out. Second, the design is meant to be user-centered, so where humans are interacting, we make it easy for them to do so. And the third principle is speed to value. We do things quickly, so we really try and surprise and delight people. I think if I take the example of another piece of work we've been doing, which is around next best action, which is helping our customer advisors support our customers, new questions, new problems, new challenges, building a next best action engine based on artificial intelligence. We use those principles to pilot that. We were very clear, we're not here to replace you, we're here to replace the simple, repetitive, boring tasks, and at the end of the day, achieve the best possible outcome for the customer, which is getting their problem resolved. And the key here is we're supporting and enabling human judgment to continue, but we're taking all the really transactional bits away, and that doesn't help the customer. I think we focus very hard on the human-centered principles of how we work to get confidence and buy-in, but we've also tried to apply those into the products we've built so people see the value of them. So we don't see humans and digital workers competing with each other. The AI-driven digital worker is there to help complement the human and better serve the customer, which is what our staff want to do.
Kathryn, financial services?
It's interesting for me. The takeaway from there was always almost humility to the AI community around our predictions, because we spent 10 years, 5 years thinking about how AI would negatively impact the global economy. We didn't think about a virus. And I think the virus has had, the impact on Canada and the United States. I'm not familiar with the details of the economic impact on Europe, but as it relates to small businesses, it's, I'm speaking from a large business perspective, and there's a lot of longevity and resilience, but a lot of restaurants and retailers are struggling. And I think it's maybe the lesson to take away is focusing on the now, focusing on building products that add value, starting small and scaling them, and trying to discipline ourselves as a community so that we don't pontificate about future things that aren't actually real. Because there's a lot of ink that's been spilled on that topic, and while it's led to amazing responses like Yves in reframing, the conversation around AI as a collaboration between man and machine and thinking about the future of work, I never felt, in being a practitioner in the weeds, that automation was as dangerous as it was made out to be. That said, and maybe this is a question for Christophe, I don't know if in the age of in the pandemic, if I think about manufacturing workflows, it's probably very dangerous to be working in a plant. Yeah. So it's probably going to spur much more adoption of robotics and accelerate that. And that's probably going to take away more jobs. So I might be short-sighted too. But I think the lesson around all of it is just humility, and then coming together to collaborate and try to make the best of the situation at hand.
And go ahead, Yves. Go ahead.
I wanted to jump on what you said. I mean, either, I mean, even people will have liked to do the process. When I refer before that, if you take conversational requests, chat on the product, you want to ask a question, you want to buy a product, or you have a technical maintenance, you want to ask a question to your provider, it increased 15 times during COVID. It was just impossible for human to cover it up. So it was seen, I think, for the customer center contact people, very valued because they would have been overloaded. And at the same time, they were able to focus on the more complex commercial construct instead of doing those very basic chat responses. And at the same time, when you look to the point of Christophe in the manufacturing, we saw a lot of companies coming and asking, how can we do remote control? How can we see the next best action, as Mike was saying, for someone controlling a factory remotely using a digital twin and, doing that everything from home. So this was seen as totally impossible. So instead of letting a worker at home doing nothing, it became possible for them not only to work from home, but to do a job that nobody thought it was possible, but in a way that is even more efficient because there is no physical movement to be done in manufacturing because it's remotely managed. So it opens to make the impossible possible and accelerate the process for people to adopt those technology because they see the benefit just like that, one day to another. Just to complement.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
One expert can, from 9 to 10, can support a plant in Australia. 10 minutes later, he can support a plant in France. So it gives us a huge opportunity, I would say, to deploy and to use, I would say, the best of us at the right time, and not being, I would say, over utilized by useless, I would say, travels. Another thing is that when you use AI in a good way as well, you can think about the best way to cope with the virus. If you are detecting some people with the virus in a plant, if you know where they were, how they interact between us, you can circumvent the problem and just I would say limit, I would say, the effect in the plant and not stop a plant because you have a cluster and so on. So everything related to all this tracing of people brings a lot of benefits at the end of the day.
One of the things, and this is, I'm just curious, we're talking about new business models and things. One of the things that struck me when COVID hit is that we suddenly saw, and I'm looking at the health sector, for instance, as an example, companies that were never willing to share data before. So like Roche and Sanofi and Johnson & Johnson suddenly saying, okay, we need to start sharing our data in order to try and find, a way to, a clinical solution to COVID. In this crisis, in your specific sector's industry, did you suddenly see yourself working differently with different actors in your ecosystem, sharing data and insight in order to then, create better, AI technologies and better serve your customers? Or any?
Well, maybe clearly the first is that the shock was a bit related to the fact that as there's been a behavior change immediately, like on the e-commerce, some companies were lagging data, didn't have enough data to predict the behavior of customer. So we saw a lot of companies willing to buy set of data from providers or from their ecosystem. That we have seen, because if they wanted to be much more, personalized in the way they provide their solution to clients, they had to get some data that they couldn't collect in the past because they had different behavior from their customer. So that maybe that's one input here I can share. Yeah. So we saw a lot of process of buying data. Yeah.
We've not been sharing data because actually we're fairly new to really exploiting data at scale. I think one of the things, the learning I've got from this is at some point you reach the limitations of the quality of your data. Yeah. So I'm reluctant to share data on an industrial scale with others because we need to be confident in the quality before it was used. Another belief that data only improves through use. We're now using it in ways we didn't imagine applying AI models to it. We're now seeing the limits of the data that we have and we hold. And the good news is on that, having demonstrated the value, now we're securing investment for the process changes, or changing data models or changing systems that we need to do that. If I'd gone a year ago and gone, can I have all this money for data quality improvements and good data governance and everything else? No one would have gone anywhere near it. Now people see the logic because they see the benefits and they can flow back to it. But I think I'm not yet confident enough in the quality to share it. What we have done as an industry is that we have shared a lot of insight. It opened us up to start. We came together, other work companies in bigger groups. We spent a lot of time talking to each other. What are you seeing? What are you learning? What are you doing? And we've shared all of that insight very openly with each other. Really powerful. The main thing we took is we're all facing the same problems, trying to solve them the same way. It's the sharing of learning just to accelerate our responses and improve the models that we've built. And that's been really good. I don't see that stopping now. We started, and our regulators are actively encouraging us to keep doing that.
And is that the same? Are you seeing the same, Kathryn, in the financial services sector?
I haven't seen quite. So there was efforts in thinking around data sharing prior to the pandemic. I'm not sure if it's accelerated efforts post. What I have seen, however, are partnerships between the financial services sector and other sectors to help take care and provide support networks for the small businesses across the country of Canada.
And Christophe, for you, since you're so linked to the automotive industry, is there much an increased sharing between what Novares does and some of your?
Like we can see today, we have Kathryn who is in Canada. We are here in France, but in different places. Mike is in the UK. I saw that it's very easy now to set up meetings, exchanges. It's very easy to find a way to exchange, to discuss. And so it increased a lot, it leveraged a lot our collaborations. And now we have an increase in collaboration with our clients, with all the customers worldwide, and with startups and partners with whom we could, I would say, think very quickly how to make a new solution and new applications. So I saw an acceleration of collaborations on the good way. And even if, of course, it's better to see each other face to face, I think it's not a big deal, and we can really do a great job I would say in a virtual interface because we see each other. So as Kathryn said, we see if we are happy, unhappy, if we like the conversation. Everything could be seen. So we can create.
So out of respective times, I know we've come to our sort of the end of our session. I just, want to go back to the initial statistic, that Accenture survey had a year ago, which said that only 16% of the companies had made the shift to from mere experimentation to AI really being a core capabilities. Where do you think we are I mean, I don't know if I don't think Accenture's come out with a survey yet, but where do you think most companies are today now, Yves? Do you think we've had a big leapfrog, like we're no longer 16, but really, closer to 50, 60? I mean, I'm throwing a random number out there.
Ooh, that's a hard percentage to say. I think there is about 80% of the client we are much more engaging than in the past on those topics because they have an obligation, I think, to leverage it now because their operation, they have to think remotely. They have to think about advising operators, as we heard from Christophe, you said, working from one place and then immediately the other one. They can't learn from those sites. So they have to have some next best action type of online support. So they go on it. And if you look to the e-commerce, obviously, they have to do much more personalized. So I think I can't say the exact percentage of the study. I think we should redo it. But what I can tell you is that systematically now we are engaging, whether it's on the customer side, whether it's on the operation side, they all want to learn of what they should do. A lot of them have accelerated the implementation. So it's like all digital. I mean, the transformation of the operation for all large companies in the world is accelerating. They have no other choice. So AI is part of the wave. they have to leverage AI to be more efficient as they do business, internally and externally. So I'm looking forward to the next survey, but I think the next survey will go above 50% for sure. That's my guess.
And as Mike said earlier, I think definitely one of the big changes is that the C-level or the decision makers, it's changed the whole decision-making process in the organization. So you're able to speed up a lot of.
And I think since last time we talked, board people are asking CEO, how do you leverage AI now? So they kind of they have an obligation to have a point of view, which is very different than in the past because everyone gets educated about it. So they want to ask questions to their CEO. So better for them to be equipped. Yeah, that's a change.
Well, on that wonderful note, as you've helped equip a lot of people today on this during this session, thank you all very, very much for joining this conversation. And I think definitely from all of you, I think the conclusion is that COVID actually has been good for AI and digital transformation. So thank you all, and hopefully look forward to seeing you soon at either France Digital or Transform AI event. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.